All right, guys, so here is the final nutrition video. So this is talk number 3. We're going to talk about basketball nutrition specifics. It's going to be a good one. There's going to be a lot of information. So we're going to try to get through it fairly fast so it's not too long. But I just want you guys to know the main point of this series of these 3 videos are basically how you can use nutrition to make you healthier, to make you a better athlete, to make you a better basketball player. So don't forget that. And I hope that you realize that after the completion of this 3rd video here. So what we're going to talk about today, specifics on protein consumption, talk about hydration, and we're going to talk about basically before, during, and after game, practice, workout, nutrition. So we're going to talk about how you can use nutrition, hydration to better yourself during those processes. Here's what we've already discussed in the first 2 videos. If you haven't watched the first 2 videos, go back and watch them now so that this 3rd video will make more sense. We've talked about why a healthy diet is important for athleticism, what carbs, proteins, and fats are. We talked about reading food and ingredient labels, why you should be doing that, how to do it basically, and what to look for. We also talked about foods to avoid if you're serious about becoming a better basketball player. And then we walked through some practical breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack examples that are not only good for you, but fairly easy on the wallet as well. Today, let's start off with protein consumption. We're going to talk about how much and when you should be taking it. So basketball players should be consuming between 0.7 and 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So for example, we'll take a 150 pound player. They should basically be consuming between 105 and 120 grams of protein daily. So to do this, weigh yourself, take your body weight, multiply that by either 0.7 or by 0.8, and that will give you your desired protein intake, what range you should be in. For example, if this player was consuming 100 on a daily basis, or they're consuming 125, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But if every day they're consuming only 75 and they do that day in and day out, then that's a big difference there. They can be really severely limiting their recovery. They're probably not going to be maintaining muscle mass very well. They certainly won't be increasing it very well. So you certainly want to be close to within that range. Another tip that I would recommend is I would say on most days, shoot for that 0.8 range. Really, these kids can handle it for the most part. And I would say, especially on days that you're more active, you should certainly be near that 0.8 range. If, maybe it was an off day, you weren't really doing a whole lot, or maybe you're on vacation, whatever, I would shoot more for that 0.7 range if they didn't have as much activity, not as much to recover from really. So that's just another practical tip. But the protein goal should be consumed within 24 hours post-workout, post-game, post-practice, whatever it is. That's pretty much what the research says now. The old school thought was you need to be consuming it 30, 40 minutes after the workout or after the game. The new research basically shows as long as you're getting that within a 24-hour window, you're 105 to 120 grams of protein or whatever it is for your body weight, it's not really that big of a deal if you don't get it within that 30 to 40 minute window. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that still. You can still, of course, drink a protein shake or, have a good meal right after your workout or right after your game, right after basically in that 30 to 40 minute window. But you're not really going to hurt yourself as long as you still get the necessary or whatever your protein goal is within that 24 hours. Another tip for protein would be drinking like 15 to 20 grams of protein in the form of a protein shake, protein powder, between 30 to 60 minutes before bed. This can actually help aid with recovery, basically because your body is ingesting that, digesting that while you're sleeping. So it's heavily researched and they found it to be decently effective. So why not? So here's ways that you can consume it and the best ways to consume it. Animal protein is first and foremost when it comes to food. It's the easiest source to obtain quite a bit, because if you look at some of those other more complementary sources, beans, nuts, seeds, bars, you're going to find that it's just much easier to eat animal protein and get volume of protein. It's hard to eat a bunch of beans or to eat a bunch of nuts and get the protein that you really need. So when it comes to food, can't beat animal protein. It's also a complete source of protein, which means it has all the essential amino acids that your body does not make itself. So animal protein, you can't go wrong with that. Unless it's like fried food or there's been a bunch of sugar added to it or whatever, but that's when it comes back to reading your ingredients. For example, if you're eating eggs, the ingredients should be eggs. If you're eating beef, it should be beef. There shouldn't be a bunch of stuff added to it. So those are your main sources of protein. And then the second bullet point there has more complementary sources. Protein shakes are also very important, often needed to help you reach your daily protein goals, which we outlined in the last slide, especially with heavy exercise. Like, it can be hard to really get to that 0.8 range if you're not consuming protein shakes. Here are some examples of protein powder. Protein powders that I would recommend. These ones, I've found all of them off Amazon, and they are all very budget friendly as well. We've got some collagen proteins. We've got some whey proteins. It's hard to find pea protein. It's hard to find it, honestly, that's very economic. But if you do find some that you want, go for it. But it's much easier to find collagen or whey protein. But again, whey concentrate would be the best one. Whey isolates are just a little bit harder to digest and just not as great on your stomach. But protein shakes are essential. Add some nuts, some peanut butter, some fruits, maybe even vegetables if you want, just things to make it taste a little bit better too if you want, or just take it in water. Moving on to hydration. We're only doing one slide on hydration, but it's very important. So good hydration helps regulate body temperature and also muscle and organ function. And, highlighting the muscle portion of that makes it really important for basketball players. This is all straight from research studies right here. So basketball players who are just slightly dehydrated have been shown to get fatigued quicker. They run slower, meaning their sprint speeds were slower, and they performed worse in shooting drills. Increasing fluid consumption will help reduce your weight loss during practices and games because, as you know, when you sweat a bunch, you are actually losing weight. And I'm sure the goal for most of these kids is to maintain or increase their weight and their muscle mass. So increasing fluid consumption before and during practices will help reduce this. And it will also help with your recovery between practices and games as well. When your body's well hydrated, you have better energy levels. Therefore, your recovery is a lot better. Fluid ingestion must be greater than fluid loss in order for this to happen. So in order to retain the amount of fluids that you had before a practice or a game, your amount of fluids that you're ingesting must be better than the amount of fluids that you lost during practice. And the research shows water is the best fluid to recover with. So, take it easy on the sugary sports drinks, maybe every now and then, but overall, water is going to be the best fluid to recover with. Certainly not soda. You need to ditch soda in your diet if you're serious about becoming a better basketball player. Pre-game nutrition. It's best to avoid meals within 2 hours of the game. You just don't want to feel all full and bloated. Try to eat, now before 2 hours, that's fine, or whatever's best for you, but eat a light snack about 40 to 60 minutes before the game, and you also need to be increasing your fluid intake 24 hours before the game, and then probably increasing it a little bit more in those 3 to 4 hours before the game. This is a much better strategy than chugging water right before the game or just chugging it during the game. This will, again, make you feel a little bit bloated or a little bit full. The goal is to be well hydrated, and you don't want to be hungry, of course, during your game, but you also don't want to feel full. That won't bode well for you during the game. Moving on to in-game nutrition, you want to take sips of water fairly often. I say sips, you're not chugging water. So take sips during each timeout. If you get subbed out, take sips about every minute or so that you're out until you re-enter the game. Chugging water or consuming water too fast will likely produce bloating. And honestly, if you are drinking a bunch of water during the game, that means you're already behind in your hydration. You need to be drinking that water before the game. So you can't replenish the fluids as you're losing them. You need to ingest more fluids before the game to build up for whenever you are losing the fluids during the game. If you struggle with late game exhaustion or hunger, or maybe your blood sugar gets low, eat some fruit or nuts at halftime and maintain adequate water intake, and that'll help with that. Post-game nutrition, the main thing is get that necessary protein intake over the next 24 hours. An easy way to do this is to eat a good meal with whole foods. We talked about a little bit in video number 2 that we need to be eating whole foods, and typically whole foods have very few ingredients in them. You just know what you're eating. It's not a bunch of added sugar, and it's not ingredients that you can't pronounce. Increase your water intake, so it's important still after your game or workout or practice to still drink plenty of water. Again, get the necessary amount of protein over the next 24 hours. Animal proteins, protein shakes, whatever you need. It'll likely be a combination of all of that. And as with all meals, the goal is for basketball players to eat nutrient-rich foods that are not just empty calories. So we want foods that are high in vitamins, high in minerals, and they're not just sugary, empty calories that have a bunch of trans fat and such in them. So, okay, that's it for pre, during, and post-game nutrition. We also covered protein in this video. If you guys need any more information, there's my email. That will go to me directly. There's our clinic phone number as well. That's the clinic number for St. John's Chiropractic and Performance. You can call or text that number. You can do either one for that number. Our clinic is located just across the street from Patriot Oaks, right off Longleaf Pines, so we're not far. There's our website there as well. So I put that on there just because we have a weekly blog that we post every Monday, and that's focused on youth athletics a lot of the times and sports injuries in general. So if you guys have questions, we try to make that as educational as possible. I'm the one writing those blogs too, so it's not just some service that we hire to type out a random blog for us. I'm the one writing those, and I'm using real research, just like I've been using real research the last 3 videos here that we've done on nutrition. Here's our Instagram and Facebook handles as well, so go ahead and give us a follow on there. And again, we just try to post content that will be educational and will help out parents and kids and youth athletes, and similar stuff to what we talked about here today. So if you guys have any questions at all, please reach out. And if you guys have any questions or comments as far as what you guys would want to be covered for future topics, let me know as well. Shoot me an email. So thank you, and we'll be talking to you soon in a sleep video coming soon.